Hi, I'm Kat, marketer turned brand storyteller,
And I'm Candice, educator turned entrepreneur.
and you're listening to
Not nice, clever.
We're two introverts who speak on stages around the country and work with top personal brands who also unapologetically require 24 to 48 hours of recovery time on the couch in our favorite sweats, all Netflix and no chill.
And to be clear, we're not quiet or nice. Together, we're redefining what it means to be an introvert who means business. It's time to show up and show off. Are you in? In today's episode of Not Nice Clever, we are diving into some of the limiting beliefs that sometimes come up for us as entrepreneurs. And this is actually inspired by just a conversation that Kat and I were having with our own limiting beliefs that rear their ugly heads every once in a while. It's almost like every new level or new thing that we take on, some of our old limiting beliefs try to poke their heads out again. And so Kat and I were talking about it and we said, you know what, we might as well just make this a full episode where we talk about all of the limiting beliefs that we've dealt with, that we've heard our clients deal with, just so you understand that you are likely not alone in whatever it is that you are thinking. So let's kick it off.
Yeah. And I think this is so important because even though we might look like we've mastered a limiting belief, it only means that we've mastered it up until this point. And so I really look at navigating limiting beliefs as more of a practice than something that has like a finite, oh, check the box. I'll never experience imposter syndrome again. It's like, no. It's going to come up.
Yep.
So I think one of the limiting beliefs that used to really command me a lot in my personal life too, not just my professional life, was the idea of taking up space and speaking up and using my voice. I even remember, it's so funny, we had recorded a mini episode about this particular limiting belief. And when we were talking about it, this memory came to mind of when I used to work for a food brokerage firm in San Francisco, and I lived in the East Bay area in California. And so I would commute on BART. And BART will get very crowded in the mornings and the evenings, like the morning and evening commuters. And I just remember where BART would sometimes get so crowded and people would just crowd into my personal space. And I'm like 20, 21 years old at this point in time. And I wouldn't say anything. And I would just continue shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. And obviously, like a crowded BART or subway train, like there's only so much space to deal with. But I would notice other people wouldn't do that, or they'd stand their ground. And then people would give them their personal space, whether it be like a centimeter or two. It was more than they were giving me.
Yeah.
And so now I that was like, 12 years ago, the taking up space in like my daily former corporate life. Now it's related to visibility and being on stages, right? And being able to speak up and know that I take up space in my own way. I don't have to be like or how everybody else is on stage. Like if they're very charismatic or bombastic, we have a bit more of like you and I kind of both like have more of like a magnetic pull when we're speaking. I mean, sometimes we spit the spice and the fire, but that's just something I was reflecting on, and it never stops. Just the situations are different and newer,
That's such a great example. The thing for me that has really been something that I think I have fought for so long in my life, but I didn't notice at first, was I feel like I was very achievement oriented in my life. Like I knew that I was going to have a great GPA, and then I was going to go to college, and then I was going to get into Teach for America, and I was going to, become a teacher and get my master's degree. And I always had the next thing lined up. And the next thing always involved someone else saying that I was qualified or good enough.
Ooh.
The thing about entrepreneurship is that no one's going to tell you you are qualified or good enough.
No, there's no roadmap.
I mean, the market will tell you.
I mean, yeah,
the market will tell you.
There are signs and symptoms.
They'll
yes.
check you. Yes.
They will check you before you wreck you. Yeah.
The market will check you, but no one's going to say like, Candice, you now have permission to own a design studio. Candice, you now have permission to write articles about branding. Like those things don't come with a stamp that qualifies you. There's no certification for that. And I think when I realized that my pattern had been to be extremely achievement oriented, I had to decide what that looks like now.
Mm-hmm.
And for me now, the thing that helps me get over that hump when I'm feeling like, am I qualified? Am I worthy? Is just thinking back to the clients that I have helped and supported and the DMs that I get from people saying, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I needed. Oh my gosh, Kat and Candice, that episode of Not Nice Clever spoke directly to me.
I love getting those messages.
I'm using just a different set of evidence or a different
Yeah.
to let me know that I'm moving in the right direction. And it wasn't always that way, right? There's probably a year or 2 years where I wasn't getting that confirmation,
Mm-hmm.
but I was working on myself and working on my skills and working on my knowledge so that I could help people. And I'm letting that be the thing that tells me whether I'm qualified or not.
Yeah, it's huge. Like my coach has imparted so much wisdom and knowledge onto me, Andrea. I am so grateful for her. But one time she was saying how she was speaking to somebody that she was dating, and he was like, "Oh, well, you're in entrepreneurship, but I'm like a former athlete. Like you don't understand sports." And she was like, "Please," she's like, "Entrepreneurship is an extreme sport, and my mind is my greatest like asset and weapon, and I have to keep it sharp, and I have to always nuance it and improve it and enhance it." And I was like, that is so true. Hence why like we're literally doing this full episode on limiting beliefs and how it has helped support us.
And this is just like an interesting side note. For me, some of my favorite clients are former athletes, whether it's like
Mm,
high school level, college level, pro athletes. Like those are my favorite clients because they understand what it looks like to not always be good.
mm-hmm. Practice.
Practice, yes. Practice got them where they are. They didn't just like they weren't born excellent,
Yeah,
right? They grew that. And I think athletes understand that the most.
very true. So another limiting belief, what it looks like in practice is saying no or disagreeing with somebody.
Mm.
The limiting belief that held me back from saying that, right? Wanting to put boundaries in place to not be a people pleaser was growing up. I would always agree or go along with something or go with the flow just to avoid conflict or avoid arguments because it created discord in my home life in my childhood growing up. And as a kid, you just like want to be happy all the time and like taken care of and secure and safe. And so I noticed that pattern of mine of agreeing for the good of the group, whether or not I agreed, right? Or speaking up and saying no,
Mhm.
it was okay then as a kid, but it didn't serve me as an adult in business because when you say yes to everything and you have no boundaries, no structure, no sense of respecting the work you provide, the value you provide, nobody else respects it in return. And then that creates all sorts of problems. And I think fear of losing out on business if you say no or if you put boundaries in place, that was another thing that held me back. But I've learned that the more that I say no, the more people want to work with me. It's like this weird thing.
Yes.
I know you've experienced that
I
too.
mean, no, it's supply and demand. It's
That's
just
true. Bringing
economics.
economics into it. I love it.
Oh, this Dom has influenced me.
I love it.
But that's literally what it is. If you're just like way too accessible, like if someone hopped on my consultation today and they're like, we want a design project done. And I was like, great, can we start today? We'd love to start today.
Hmm.
Like that would make the other person probably uncomfortable. Like,
Yeah.
wait, why don't you have any business? You are ready to start today.
Right. What's your process? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, what's your
Hmm.
process? Yeah, this is weird. I mean, I have a small design studio, so we're always booked out because of our team size is not very large right now.
You have a growing
I have a growing, yeah.
design studio who's about to raise their rates, by the way. So you better book with her now. I'm just saying.
We were talking about limiting beliefs, and Kat has encouraged
There we
me.
go.
I have a small team right now. And so what actually was really funny was a few months ago, I had a client, his name was Joe,
Hmm.
and hopped on a consultation. And by the end of our consultation, I was like, okay, so the next available start date was about a month out. I was like, is this day? It takes 4 to 6 weeks, whatever. I gave him the whole spiel. I was like, so if you'd like to secure your start date, like you need to sign today.
Hmm.
And he was like, okay, yeah, send it over. And then he's like, can I ask a question? Like, of
I remember
course,
you
Joe.
shared this
Sure, no
story.
problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, the start date thing, is that real? Like, are you really booked out that far? And I was like, you know what, Joe? To be 100% honest, that used to not be true, and today it is.
So I have manifested being a month booked out.
Yes, I have manifested being in this place where I actually am usually 4 to 6 weeks booked out at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, "Good for you. I love that." And yeah, it totally works. And I started laughing. But he's a salesperson himself, so he gets it.
Yeah.
But I'm not lying. That is where we are. But yeah, one time that was a dream. That was a goal to be booked out, right? And that comes from believing in yourself.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, this is like a perfect segue into like another limiting belief I know that you and I have both navigated, continue to navigate as we gain experience and perspective is, well, first setting whatever your rates are, your fee, your commission, whatever it may be, however you get paid as an entrepreneur, and then raising those rates. Two things. Setting it is honestly just kind of throwing darts at the wall until you get going. Like, oh, there's no way around that. You got to experiment, right? If you have no context, but raising your rates. How have you like navigated this in your own business? Because we've all had varying careers over the last few years.
Yeah, I think that this has just been something that I've kind of always wrestled with.
Mm-hmm.
I feel bad when I raise my rates. It doesn't make me feel good,
Yeah.
but there's things that need to be considered outside of just my time when it comes to pricing any offer that I have. And I think when I first started as an entrepreneur, I was just thinking about, matching my income at my previous job.
That's your frame of reference. Yeah.
Right. And so that was my frame of reference. I was like, okay, if I could match my income but work less, that would be cool. And so that was kind of the starting point where I was like, okay, if I want to make this much in a year and I want to work this many hours, like what is the dollar per hour amount that works? But that was pretty naive because I wasn't really thinking about all of the costs that go into running my business,
Mm-hmm.
including like social media management, brand photography, website,
Accounting and bookkeeping, the software. Yeah.
Yes. Like you need to think about all of those prices and use that to create the prices that your offers or whatever, however your business works.
Mm-hmm.
That all needs to be considered. And I didn't always consider that. So now it's not just my hourly informs, but my overhead also is part of the consideration.
Absolutely.
And then it also does have to do with the market, right? If one thing that Dom taught me is if like 100% of the people are saying yes, that's probably not the right price.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they're like, oh, that's an easy yes, easy yes, easy yes every day, like you probably could push a little bit more
Yeah.
and, and make more money. And so this is a conversation I probably revisit at least twice a year because, as things get more expensive, especially in today's market, everything is increasing, right? Even the support that I have on my team,
Mm-hmm.
like they're requiring more money. And if they're requiring more money, like
to sustain it. Yeah, exactly.
yes,
The
exactly.
costs are always often passed on to the consumer.
Mm-hmm.
I think a biannual review is a smart like cadence because too, the other side of it, yes, rising costs, yes, your overhead to facilitate whatever service it is that you offer. But additionally, I've seen this with myself and I've seen it with you. You get better at delivering good work, great work quicker. And the quicker you get, right? Just because of your wisdom and your knowledge and your experience, what used to take you, let's say a month, you can do in 2 weeks, but it's because of the 10 years of experience you have. And so I think leveling up the quality of the work, the time you save your client, whatever offer or whatever service it is, that is always changing as you gain more and more experience, especially as an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's also something to take into consideration when raising your rates.
Yes. How much time are you saving your clients?
Mm-hmm.
Totally. You're out there building your personal brand and you also have a team relying on you. But if your people don't know how to fish for themselves, the burden of new business always falls on you. Ouch. No thanks.
The opportunity we see, teach your team how to generate their own business.
The result, more time and energy back in your day so you can scale sans burnout.
Amplify by Not Nice Clever is the ace up your sleeve, a hands-on workshop full of replicable frameworks and actionable strategies that your team can put in place right away.
Your job? Sit back and let us work our magic.
Even CEOs need help sometimes. We've got you. Head to our show notes to get the deets. #outsourced.
I want to go back to the conversation that we had about feeling bad about saying no
Ooh, yeah.
or saying yes to everything.
Mhm.
I helped myself kind of get out of that. I would ask myself this question: is saying yes to them saying no to myself? And if it was, like, why am I okay with telling myself no? I'm not okay with telling anyone else no. That's not how I want to operate.
Yeah.
And so I always think about that. If I have the desire to just say yes for whatever reason,
Mhm.
I ask myself that question.
Yeah. It goes back to the idea of, like, to use a dating analogy, you guys know how much we love dating analogies. People treat you the way that you treat yourself. And if you treat others the way you want to be treated, the way that you treat yourself when nobody's looking, right? That's probably the most important. How do you treat yourself when nobody is around, right? How do you talk to yourself? How do you
Hmm.
take care of yourself? How do you hype yourself up, and appreciate and express gratitude? And that's definitely reflected in how others treat you. I think too, saying no, for me, I would feel bad about it because I'd be afraid of hurting the other person's feelings. I would think that saying no was like, I would take it personally, or I would be afraid the other person would take it personally too. Did that ever like hold you back at all?
Yes, but what I realized, if I were the person who was asking, if I was like, "Hey, Kat, do you want to go to Palm Springs with me next weekend?" And you were like, you felt obligated to say yes to me and you said yes,
Mm,
like, do I actually want to be there with a person who doesn't want to be there?
yeah, we don't like obligation energy.
Right. Like, and that doesn't feel good for either party.
Hmm.
And so what I realize is that I'm a more honest person if I'm just like, you know what, like, not really feeling Palm Springs, but have a blast, send me pics,
Yeah.
what, right? Like, I could still encourage you to do you.
Yeah. I would love to go to Palm Springs with you though. So if we want to plan a girls'
Okay.
weekend
Okay.
at
Got
some
it. Yes.
point.
I love Palm
Oh my
Springs. It's
gosh. I
great.
have
So close to
not,
me
I
too.
have never been. Can you believe that?
I mean, it's so chill. It's just like,
Right? It's like Zen desert, Southern California
it
vibes, which I'm
is.
just like, give me more of that. Oh, I love it.
Okay. This next one
Mm.
is just basically everything that Nice Clever is about. A limiting belief around, like, being worthy to show up on camera and
Ooh.
show up online regularly.
Yep. Well, I'll share my favorite reframe that I still write down as a mantra. I say, and for those of you listening, insert it with the details that are relevant to you. I am 5'3". I am Japanese American. I am bottle blonde. I am worthy, right? Don't tell anybody. But like your worth is a fact. Fact. Unequivocal. It's not up for negotiation. It is not based on how you feel. It is not a feeling. It's a fact. So if you can
Right.
accept that, learn to accept that, ingrain that, write it down as many times as you need to believe it to be true, because it is true, goes so far in being able to show up and being able to be visible, being okay with being visible, in being in partnership with incredible people like you and all of the amazing people that like our careers have afforded us to get to know better. We're worthy, period. Because like I'm also a bottle blonde and you're beautiful brunette, period.
Infinitely worthy. I
Mm-hmm.
think that so much of brand building goes back to that. And my friend Giselle always talks about how she uses brand building as a way to talk about personal
I
development.
love it.
And I love that because that's absolutely true. And the life coach in me loves that because the only way that you allow yourself to take up space and show up regularly and be a beginner in front of people
Mm-hmm.
is by believing that you're worthy and believing that the dreams that you have for yourself are possible. And that the reason you have that dream in your heart is because that's your destiny. That's what you're meant for.
Yes.
And if you believe that, then it's a lot harder for people to tell you otherwise.
Yeah. And if you fail, you pick yourself back up, you turn it into a lesson and you get just 1% better.
And like, I think Neil, I was watching Neil on Instagram the other day,
Mm-hmm.
and he was just talking about how failure is like not even a real thing.
Yeah,
Like, you only fail if you quit, right? You only fail if you stop.
I agree.
And that is so true because both of us could have stopped so many times
Oh my
for so
gosh.
many reasons.
Seriously, there were plenty of roadblocks, plenty of
Yeah, and
detours,
there will be, and there will
and
be,
still
and
just
we
new
know
ones.
that.
Yeah. But now we've banded
Yes,
together, so it's easier to tackle them together,
exactly.
you know?
Right. And you get in community with people who see that the path is not going to be easy. You
Mhm.
see that the path is always going to be there's going to be twists and turns and unexpected things are going to happen, and that is just entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And if you could just be like, "Yep, I expected it to be challenging at some points. I
Mhm.
expected it to be unexpected."
Yeah.
Then you can set your expectations appropriately and then feel better about it when it comes up.
Yeah. I see a lot of language, and it's so funny because I used to really look up to and like save all of these pins on Pinterest. And you probably know what I'm talking about, where it's like, you are worthy, you are deserving, you deserve this. Nobody deserves anything, nobody's entitled to anything. You have a dream. Cool. Make it happen. Find a way. Upskill yourself. Get in community. Figure it out. Be creative. Whatever dream you want, you can get. You can make a reality. It does nothing to do with deservingness or worthiness because that's just the fact. And you can make it
Mhm.
happen, period. Like, don't use that as an excuse not to show up or not to realize that dream that you have for yourself because you probably have it for a reason, whatever that reason may be.
I think a lot of times people make up stories in their mind about why other people are successful and it's not possible for them.
Yeah.
They look at people and they're like, "Oh, well, like Ryan." They look at Ryan and like, "Well, he was on $1 million listing." Well, there's a lot of people on $1 million listing and you don't even know their names. Why?
There are so many people on so many reality TV shows. So
Right.
many people are given that platform. Few live beyond it, you know?
Exactly. And also, how did they get there? Something must have been right.
Mhm.
The energy must have been right. They must have been putting themselves out there. They said yes even when they didn't feel ready.
Mhm.
Like, all of those things led them to the opportunity, and they said yes to the opportunity, and then they capitalized on the opportunity. And you can't be mad at people for that. And if you are that person who's mad at someone for capitalizing on an opportunity, like, that's why you don't have opportunities.
Yeah, it's not gonna change your situation at all.
It's not going to change your situation. And that vibe, that energy is actually keeping you from having the magnetic pool of opportunities.
Mhm. Nobody wants to be around that.
Anyways, okay. No one wants to be around that. I don't know how I got off on that, but
I'm here for it. We said that it
here
was
we
gonna be
go.
spicy. Okay. Oh. This is a good one for all of our entrepreneurs out there in the Clever Crew. Limiting belief that used to hold me back, and now I just invite it, and I've made it a mantra, is that changing careers, changing companies, changing social media platforms will mean that I'm flaky and can't commit and won't be successful.
Yeah. And really, that's always going to happen.
Yeah.
There's change in life. And I think having more experiences actually allows you to be even more well rounded.
Yeah. I was using ChatGPT the other day to develop like questions for it to ask about like my business to help me make my business better. And one thing that it had reflected back to me after taking into account all the context that I shared with it was that because of my background in corporate, in startup, in healthcare, interior design, wellness, fitness, real estate, all of this, worked with small teams, big teams, individuals, that I have a very well-rounded, I think was one of the words it used. That's why I like queued up the example, and empathetic approach. I know how to adapt and like work in all those different environments. And
Hmm.
also the reason that I've made each of those changes and like the next best step for me is because I wasn't fully aligned, or I wasn't like fully like embodying my purpose or what I wanted to do. I didn't want to settle.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people settle, and I'm not saying it's good or bad to do that. It just is, but I didn't want to for me. And so that
Hmm.
looked like a very colorful resume. Now I don't even have a resume. Now, like, nobody asks for my resume anymore. Like, my content is my resume. Build a brand so you never have to
Exactly.
keep up with a resume because I freaking
You
hated
have to write a resume.
updating
It's
my
like, yeah,
resume. No.
find me on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Seriously. You tell me what you want to hire me for. Like, literally.
Right. My favorite quote about personal branding from Rory Baden is your personal brand is the digitization of your reputation. And if your reputation is digitized and easily accessible in the online space, like if I Google your name and I know what you're about, I don't think you'll ever need a resume.
Nope. So much easier. So I don't know how you were as a teenager, Candice, but I was super awkward. I
Oh, yeah, me too.
Dude, so awkward. And, like, I just stuck to, like, my cousins, like, and I hung out with them. I would, like, tag along with them, but I would write a lot,
Same.
right? Yeah, because they were a little bit older
Yeah.
than me. They had driver's licenses, they had cars, I didn't. I was like, "Oh my god,
There you
freedom." But I
go.
was also a writer. I've been writing since I was, like, in the 4th grade, just because I couldn't not, and it almost became like a form of
Mhm.
therapy for me as I was going through, like, a lot of loss and grief in, like, my middle school into high school years. But I was super awkward, and I didn't know that I
Yeah.
was an introvert then. And then when I started, going to community college and getting out of my hometown, I was like, "Oh," I was like, "There's a name for it. There's a name for why I am the way that I am."
Mm.
And so now
Yeah,
I just feel like I've been hacking my business and my life to optimize for the fact that I am an introvert, and that's not gonna change. I don't know. How was
I
it for
love that.
you as, like, a high school,
Yeah,
middle
I mean,
schooler?
I was definitely awkward. I wasn't so much a writer, but I read all the time, and that
Mm,
was kinda like my escape is, like,
yeah.
reading. It meant I didn't have to talk to anyone
Yeah.
or have awkward conversations.
Yes.
But it's interesting because I've also always been a leader. Like, I will wrangle people, and we will work on a common goal.
Mhm.
No matter what grade I was in,
You would be the
that was
one
me.
to lead all the group projects and to make sure the shit got done, right?
Yes,
Oh my god, me
100%.
too. That's why I
Yep.
hated group
Yeah.
projects. I was like, "Bitches, I deserve the A. You guys get a
Right.
C for showing up. Like, what the hell?"
Yeah.
Sorry, everybody I
Yeah.
went to high school with, but, like, not sorry.
I've always been a leader, but if it's not working towards something, then I'd probably just, like, have my nose in a book.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not interested. I'm not interested in anything that is small talk, boring. Like, I'm interested in big vision, big
Let's
goals,
shake up this earth.
big problems even. Like, I'm interested in that,
Yeah.
but I'm not interested in anything that is just surface level bullshit,
Yeah.
and that's been Candace since high school for sure, maybe even earlier.
Yeah. And also, if you're an introvert listening to this, even if you're not, like, it hasn't always been easy for us to figure out ways to build our business in ways that maintain our energy. We're setting our boundaries. Our offers are designed so that we only show up when we're at 100%. We've gotten really good at it over the years. There's still room for improvement, but, like, make no mistake, like, just because you always see us on does not mean we are always on. Like, we are definitely introverted. When I got back from 3 days in New York, I literally just, like, sat on my couch and stared at Will's bonsai, like, out the window and just, like, my eyes glazed over.
Yep,
Like, I just
exactly.
needed to come to, you know?
Totally. So, if you're an introvert and you're listening to this, you can still build amazing, incredible, successful businesses and build them in a way that supports you and how you operate. Because Kat and I have done that. We're continuing to figure out ways to even do that better, and we want to do it alongside of you. Thanks for joining us on Not Nice, Clever.
Remember to follow our podcast wherever you listen to audio.
And if you found today's episode valuable, please share it with your friends.
No gatekeeping here. Remember, we love to see our clever crew grow.
Signing off, you're not so nice, but oh so clever besties that mean business.
See you soon.